Let's talk Aggies and let's talk Crimson Tide. The Alabama Crimson Tide roll into Kyle Field for a 2:30 Central start. And once again, for the third straight year, Texas A&M is playing Alabama with their backup quarterback.
Come on. It's
Both
and I love I'll real quick I'll say this. And I know you're our Texas A&M fan, obviously, a student currently there, just about everything about the program. A fan can know, but no shade to Max Johnson. I love Max Johnson. I think he's gritty as hell. I love the way he plays football. Ton of SEC experience. We've seen him light up really good defenses with LSU, right? And even A&M last week against Arkansas played really well. But Connor Wyben was a rising star in this game, and it is unjust. It is so sickening to see that injury happen to him, and then also to deprive us from games like this he would have had to play against a really really good defense in Alabama. And I'll let you continue.
let me ask you this. Do you think this line's flipped if Wigman's playing this game?
Well,
I don't
no,
see. I don't think so.
no,
I don't think
no,
so. I
no, no,
think this
no.
line is the exact same.
Yeah, yeah.
It opened at 2.5. Alabama minus 2.5. I
I
think
think it
that
would have maybe it would have opened at 1.5. It probably would have settled right here like it is. I do think some of the money coming in is just Kyle Field, man. How do you put a point percentage on it in big games if you're Vegas? Because you cannot over adjust for it. Because then if A&M's favored in this game, then you're gonna lose so much money on one side, right? For Vegas, for you guys who don't really aren't familiar with betting lines, right? Their goal is to get even money on both sides. With the way that odds work, with betting spreads, is that if it's even money on both sides, they're gonna make money no matter what, and that's their goal, obviously. Um, but yeah,
they move
it's
when the
just
market moves. You know,
yeah,
it's
exactly,
it's
exactly.
a fluid market. I will say so. Both these teams lost week 2 to an undefeated Miami team and an undefeated Texas team. Both of those teams look like really, really good teams right now. And I think both of these teams are entirely different teams right now than they were back then. Completely Texas A&M's case, right? 7 sacks in each of the last two conference games. The last team to do that, I don't know. There's been 3 in the history of the SEC, so that's like pretty crazy. Uh, that's a wild stat right there. DJ Durkin finding ways to get pressure. The secondary still doesn't look amazing, but if that front seven, that linebacker play keeps playing the way they do, goodness gracious, right? And they're finding a run game identity, right? Le'Veon Moss has kind of been their go-to back these last 2 games. Finally, surpassed 100 yards this past week. He looks really good, and he's physical, and you kind of need that in a game against Alabama, right? You know, like Isaiah Spiller 2 years ago when they won, Isaiah Spiller got a lot of carries. A&M never abandoned the run game. They didn't run it all that well though, but they just never abandoned it, right? Giving us those third and shorts, right? That you're able to convert, even with a quarterback like Zach Calzada. Straight.
Oh,
There goes a stray bullet. There goes a stray bullet. And then Alabama. We look at their loss against Texas. We blame their offensive line. We blame Jalen Monroe. Mississippi State last week, their offensive line looked fine. They looked like they were blocking better in the run game. And they're like, oh, we're not really good at pass blocking. So here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to throw the ball. Threw the ball. Jalen Monroe threw the ball 12 times against Mississippi State. So I think Alabama is going to really try to stick to the run game. Now, A&M has been really good defending the run this year, which is way different than it was last year. You can credit that to more experienced defensive line and more skilled linebackers. Notice how I didn't say DJ Durkin. Or not more experienced linebackers, better linebacker play. There's more talent there this year in that front seven. And I don't know. Is Jason McClellan going to be able to run the ball against Texas A&M? Are they going to rely too heavily on Jalen Monroe's legs for this game? Bama on the road. Is Bama, who's struggled with some big time penalties in some certain games, are they going to struggle? Are they going to commit some bad penalties on the road? I think they do. As a homer, sounds like a terrible pick, but I don't see how you can't take A&M plus 1.5 and just go ahead and give me them to win the ball game at Kyle Field. Max Johnson's been playing really good. I think Texas A&M in this game has arguably, I'm going to say the word arguably in the comments. If you want to argue with me about this, you can argue with me about it. The better quarterback, the better offensive line, the better defensive line right now, and better weapons at receiver. I think that those are all arguments that you can make, and those are things that I believe. So I'm going to take this Texas A&M team to win this ball game.
Wow. And I don't hate that. Like, obviously, I don't think many people do either. I've seen a lot of people taking A&M. Obviously, the spread is 1.5. So, like, it's supposed to be a really, really good game. I don't think it's a bad pick to pick either one of these teams. That's why it's such a close line. You bring up the fact that they both lost in week 2. A lot of very, very upset fans. A lot of, people thought that loss was going to snowball into a lot of other losses. And so far it hasn't. Since that game, obviously, the week after, Bama did not look great against USF. They played their backup quarterbacks. It was a really weird week, and everyone's like, what the heck? They bounced back with 2 really good wins. Impressive wins. I'll say impressive wins. Ole Miss, obviously, a very impressive, very good win. Mississippi State was a very dominant win, which they needed, and they haven't really had in a while. And A&M, obviously, the past 2 weeks playing against at home against Auburn, and then also playing neutral site against Arkansas. Dominating wins, I thought, especially defensively there. I do think in terms of the impact of what happens before I give my prediction, on one of these teams has to lose, right? We know that. And one of these fan bases and coaching staffs are going to get ridiculed no matter what. And it's so frustrating because this is supposed to be a really good game. It could be a 1-point game, and that doesn't change who either of these coaches and these teams are, I don't think. Right. But because they already have that one blemish on their record, right? And the other team gets right in the driver's seat of the SEC West. With the way LSU's playing right now, with Bama having already beat Ole Miss, right? With Tennessee, who both these teams play later in the year, not looking great, I believe. Right? When was the last time? Okay, so when A&M beat Bama 2 years ago, right? Nobody really thought they had it in them to run the table in the West because of the quarterback play, because Calzada played, a fantastic game for one game. The rest of the year, he was not good, like, at all. Nope, like, he was not very good.
Yeah,
this year,
you're telling me.
This year, though, it's a different A&M roster. It's a different quarterback, different offensive scheme in general. The defense is playing really, really well. And Bama, obviously, when people are lower on them as years pass, but I think a win on the road at Kyle Field, where they've struggled on the road in big games the past, 3 years since 2020, that would be huge for them. And this is, I think, both teams' toughest test the rest of the way through. And that doesn't mean they're going to win every other game just because they win one game. But it means that this is a huge win, and it'd be a huge boost for both these teams. I'm gonna go Alabama here. I do think that Bama's D line is going to give Max Johnson problems. I know you mentioned the O line for A&M. I didn't love the way they played against Miami. I thought they played fine, and it wasn't the offense, right? The defense got torched. The secondary got torched. One thing Jalen Monroe does really, really well is throw the deep ball, and we saw Tyler Van Dyke and Xavier Restrepo and other receivers really, really torch him on vertical passes. And I think Jalen Monroe can do that. I think, though, the keys here for both teams, if you're Bama, Milroe has to be in the teens for passing the football. And if you've been a Bama fan the last 10 years, that has not been the normal, right? They've been throwing the football a lot ever since Lane Kiffin got there with Blake Sims, right? They've been throwing the football a lot. And a lot of times they're throwing the football has been their primary option, their best options. Not this year, not against this A&M team with the way they're rushing the passer right now. And if you run the ball effectively, that's where your play action happens. That's where you can take advantage of these linebackers. And we've seen it time and time again the past 2 years with this A&M football team. Their defense has been vulnerable at linebacker and then in the vertical passing game if they get gashed in the run, right? The past 2 weeks, they have not. They've shut them down. And in credit to A&M, I do think Bama is going to be fired up to play this football game. I really do. I do not think much different feeling than 2 years ago. We were both there for that game. We felt the atmosphere in College Station there. It was a 3-touchdown game. It was a 3-score game. This is a much different feeling. Bama is not going to be overlooking anybody this week. They know exactly what they're getting into. I think Jalen Monroe is going to have a good game. I think that defense, right, that secondary for Bama versus the strength of A&M's offense in their wide receiver room is going to be really fun to watch. I guess that's all I can really say. It's more of a gut feeling. I think Bama's going to continue to be peaking and ascending, and this is no shame to A&M. And unfortunately, if they lose this game, Jimbo Fisher is going to be right on the warm seat again. People are going to be frustrated with him and Bobby.
Which is wild.
Petrino and DJ Durkin.
Last year I get, but for the team this year, right? I mean, it feels like Petrino was the right hire. Maybe could argue that you get a different defensive coordinator, but
Durkin's played well. And here's what I'll say about Durkin. The past 2 weeks, he's done really well. Obviously, take Miami out, but that's also like Bama has, like, and Kirby Smart gives up big, like Ohio's, like, teams in college football score points. That's just what happens these days. I think what DJ Durkin needs to do to confuse Jalen Monroe is to change the picture on him. He cannot read defenses very well. He really can't. Right? You don't have to necessarily blitz them. I think with the 4 or 5 guys that you got, you can get to him. You can get pressure and contain him, right? If you do that right, if you stay in your lanes, you push the pocket and you collapse the pocket on him instead of leaving gaping holes for him to run through. And you have athletic linebackers, especially Torian York, I think that can spy him and get to him. But I think changing the picture here, force some turnovers, confusing them. But I do think if you're in 2nd and 3, right, it's a lot harder to change the picture on him than in 2nd and 11, right? And that's where you're going to thrive if you're A&M, to get those big-time negative plays.
Yeah, I think the winner of this game is the team that hits the explosive play. I think it's going to be a nitty-gritty game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored. The total opened at 49, and it is down to 46.5. So yeah, I think you can tell where the public's going with that as well.
Give me one player on A&M. Who makes that explosive play? Is it Anaya Smith? Who missed this game last year, by the way.
He did miss this game last year.
Where's Moose Muhammad been all year? I feel like he's a guy that you'd love to get him more involved.
Well, he's a slot guy. It's for Moose's. I think it's Noah Thomas. I think his size.
Okay.
I don't know. That's literally just a dart on the dartboard. It could be any of those guys. That's why I like those weapons.
Well, last year it was a true freshman, Terrion Arnold, getting kind of picked on by a true freshman, Evan Stewart. Now, Terrion Arnold is playing really well right now, I think, in his year 2. It's in terms of special teams, who has the edge in this game?
That's a great question, because like PFF has A&M like graded really high in special teams. In fact, they haven't graded like top 10 in the country. Special teams is what put them ahead in the Miami game, and then also put them behind, right? That kick return. I do think Texas A&M has the edge in the special teams. I think Will Reichard is the edge. Has the edge in the kicking game there, but I think Nick Constantino has got an absolute boot. I think the punt coverage team has done a great job this year. I think punt return team and punt block. Yep. I think in that aspect, right, kickoff has had its issues, right? But I think in terms of the punting game, I think A&M has the advantage there.
Yeah, and Kool-Aid McKinstry is a very explosive return man in his own right. But we saw Anaya Smith last game, right, and what he can do. He seems like he's getting more and more healthy every week. I would love for him, and this is obviously would hurt my prediction. I'd love for him to make a special play on special teams. We saw A-Chain, right, 2 years ago, after Bama gets a game-changing play, right? I think they blocked
on theirs. Yeah, this special teams matchup is going to be pretty awesome.
And then Devin A-Chain. So don't forget about that while you're watching this game. Something's going to happen. It's going to be a 4-quarter fight. Jimbo and Nick Saban, that beef too. No one's really talked about that, by the way. I haven't heard much about that beef. Obviously, they buried the hatchet, and it was definitely overblown. But this is what storyline, man. That's why you love college football. You love these rivalries. You love it, man. You love it.